This week, I was talking with a mom from Ravenna about parenting. She has several kids, and the oldest one is 10. And we were talking about balancing all the activities in a busy family and how hard it is. And then she said, I don't complain, because realistically, my oldest in 8 years is going to be leaving the house, and it may be for good. She said, I have 8 years left to spend with him. I'm going to enjoy every one of them. Are you like me? Do you find that a decade goes so fast? She's already had 10 of the years. She's got 8 to go. She wants to enjoy each one. It reminded me of being pastor here for 3.5 years. And every once in a while, people will bring up one of my greatest fears. And sometimes they do it in such a nonchalant way, not even knowing that they're like putting a dagger in my heart. They say, Father Scott, when do you think the bishop will move you? You think sometime soon? And I go, oh. It makes me feel so clingy to have those feelings. It just makes me not as able to enjoy the moment when I know that it's fleeting. I hope that doesn't happen for years and years, but I know that eventually it will, and that's not easy. You know those moments where you wish you could just freeze time? Why can't we just stay where we are and not take this any further? That's what tonight is all about. Have you ever been to a mass this beautiful? I mean, come on. It's so tender. What we're celebrating is so amazingly sweet and rich. And that night was like that. This was a holiday. As we heard in the first reading, they were celebrating the Jewish Passover. They were Jews. And there they were for this big family holiday all together, a family. And he got so real with them. Shared things with them he'd never said before, washed their feet. They probably never felt closer to him than they did on that night. And how could they not want that to last forever? So can you believe that the scene we just shared, the very next day, they would lose him? If there was any night they would have wanted to press pause on, it was that night. If you were making a list of the churches that you would most want to visit or most want to last forever, wouldn't Notre Dame be on the list? Wouldn't that famous 800-year-old church be on the list? Are you one of the people that's had that as one of your bucket list items? We didn't even know that it could burn. If you're like me, I found myself saying, it's made of stone, isn't it? How could it burn like that? I didn't even know to be worried about that. Another thing I could have been worrying about this whole time. And that's exactly what was going on this night too, because they didn't even know to be worried about this. They didn't even know. He had told them, he had warned them, but they would never let him get it out. Every time he would start to say, now remember, part of my journey is I'm going to give up everything. Remember, I'm in this to give my life. Every time that happened, they would say, shh, don't say that, stop it. You're going to jinx us, you stop. Always, they didn't want to hear it. And who can blame them? How many parents have had the thought, as they look at their baby sleeping, I didn't know that I could ever love someone this much. I didn't know I could feel love this deep. I can never lose them. I could never live a day without them. I can relate to that in a different way because now my parents are in their 70s and I'm going to go home for Easter. And every time I'm home, I feel, at least at some point along the visit, maybe this will be the last one where they're both here. I better really enjoy this Easter, this Christmas, this visit together. Holy Thursday is the first night of the 3 holiest, most powerful days of history. And I am not going to sugarcoat this. We are going to get put through the ringer. You're going to be put through the ringer with sweetness and emotion tonight, and tomorrow is going to be brutal. Tonight we celebrate how precious Jesus is. We remember some of his finest, sweetest moments, giving us his body and blood in the Eucharist, and showing utter humility, stooping to wash our feet. It's going to make tomorrow even worse. Isn't that how it is when you love deeply? The loss is all the harder. We know right now, because of where we are in history, that Easter is coming. We know that this is the path to Easter. We've never been closer to Easter than we are right now. There's only one thing in the way. One thing. Why does it have to be that? Why do we have to walk into that wall? But the goal is that our faith will remind us that it's not a wall. It's a door. It's a doorway to the fullness of life. What we are celebrating in the next 3 days is the top of faith. This is the summit. We are at the top of Mount Everest when it comes to faith, because we are taking off whatever blinders we had and recognizing that every single one of us is going to face the cross in some way. Every single one of us. But we are also given the opportunity to know that after the cross comes the resurrection. We are thinking this is impossible, that can lead to the resurrection. But it is the way. The only way to the resurrection is through the cross. But don't let the cross stop you from knowing the truth. Resurrection is our destiny. We are destined for it. Notre Dame caught fire around supper time in France, and hours later, there was their president, President Macron, speaking to the country. Perhaps you saw some of that. He actually was going to speak to the nation about something else from his office, but he canceled that completely because that place was their treasure. 13 million people a year go to visit it. It was the very most precious thing they have. A lot of people have said, well, isn't the Eiffel Tower that precious? Yeah, but it's 100 years old. And the wind whips through it, and you don't go there to pray. This was where they say the crown of thorns was kept. This was one of the finest things that France had. And there it was, smoldering in ruins. And the president looked into the camera, and you know he didn't have time to prepare this speech because no one knew this was going to happen. And he said, and I quote him, "We are going to rebuild this cathedral all together." And then he said, "This is an undoubtable part of the French destiny." It's undoubtable that we are going to find our way to a new and even more beautiful Notre Dame. Don't doubt it. It's our destiny, he said to his people. That's not a political speech. He didn't have time to prepare that. That is faith. That's faith speaking. That's what it sounds like. That's what it looks like. Because the building was still smoldering behind him. It wasn't done yet, but he already knew in a deep place, the deepest place, that cathedral would rise. So these next 3 days are telling us this story is a beautiful ending. But boy, is it going to get worse before it gets better. We got a journey to go on. And to get to where we want to go, it's going to get worse before it gets better. There's no way there without the cross. but we're going to make it through. You know why? Because it's undoubtable. Because it's our destiny.